Crimson Desert, there's a lot of confusion around this game. Some people love it, some people hate it, and the facts are Crimson Desert is messy. It's frustrating and also fun, as there's something here that kept me playing for a long time. I'm Vadd, and here in my review, the big question I have is it actually good or just wasting your time? It might feel backwards to start this video at the end here, but I think we need to talk about what Crimson Desert is not. I want to be really clear here at the start. Crimson Desert is not a sandbox game. You are not shaping the world. You are not building your own path in a meaningful way. It gives you options, but not real freedom. Crimson Desert is not a deep RPG. You are not making choices that matter. You are not changing the story. Yes, there are RPG systems there, but they do not define the experience. Crimson Desert is not a polished action game. The combat is not tight, movement is not smooth, and you will feel the rough edges. Crimson Desert is also not a story-first game, and if that's what you're here for, you're going to be disappointed. And ultimately, Crimson Desert is not a game that respects your time early on. It takes a significant time investment to really open up, and you will have to push through that. My best estimate, you're looking at 10 to 30 hours, or at least the completion of Chapter 5 of the main campaign, before you can really engage with the world. And if you understand all of that going in, I think we've set some realistic expectations of what Crimson Desert isn't. I think you'll have a much better time, as Crimson Desert is a big game, like really big. It feels like it could have been an MMO expansion, but instead it's a single-player experience, because there are a ton of systems which have a shocking level of depth and time you can lose yourself in them individually. For me though, Crimson Desert's biggest problem is that it takes way too long to get good, as the opening hours are the weakest. And right away, this game asks a lot from you. While also failing to guide you very well early on, you're going to be expected to figure a lot of things out. I think some players will like that, and other players will bounce off that fast. I think it's this design choice and that split it creates that really defines this game, as Crimson Desert is about exploration. Not story, not polish, exploration. You go somewhere, you find something weird, you mess with it, and I think that basic loop, it works, and I think it keeps working, and that's why some people really stick with it and it lands for them. At launch, Crimson Desert did not feel playtested. It was a very rough build that got sold anyways, and you, the consumer, you became the playtest. I'm not talking about small bugs. I'm talking at launch, there's basic stuff that should have worked from day one. For example, the main story quest in chapter 2, 3, and 4. The opening chapters could break and you could get stuck and not progress. There was no real storage, only a limited inventory for literally thousands of items. Almost every animation you could imagine was busted. Animations, movement, your character, your mount, the boss fights, lip syncing, visual clipping, visual effects. The jump input was not responsive and sometimes wouldn't go off. We're talking basic interactions here. The lantern range was too small. The camera when aiming your bow had to be improved. It took way too many hits to chop a tree, and at one point the main menu wouldn't even open. This is the level of basic we're talking about. This is not polished. This is baseline functionality. And yes, to their credit, everything I just mentioned was fixed in earlier patches. The game is better now than it ever was. For me though, at worst, I felt scammed at launch, and at best, this wasn't early access, but it sure felt like it. I think on paper, if you write down a little bulleted list, the story of Crimson Desert manages to check every box your early academia writing professor wants to see. For me though, the story was weak. It has its moments, but most of them don't land. It introduces characters and then forgets about them. In the early game in the opening is the worst part of the narrative, which is a huge problem. You start off as Cliff, you're introduced to your tribe, they immediately get wiped out, you die, you come back to life, and after that, it gets even more messy. Lots of disconnected quests are introduced in your journal, there's no clear direction. Later on, it improves a bit, but it never becomes great. This is not a story-driven game. A lot of the writing is flat. The scenes don't build into anything meaningful, you do not get strong payoffs for your time, and most moments are easy to forget as it never really pulls you in. The progression system, though, is where Crimson Desert really shines. There's a lot of progression. Artifacts, skills, gear, stats, research, it all kind of feeds into each other. The more time you invest, the stronger you feel. Gear is kind of interesting because the base items all have the same stat line. What this means is it doesn't really matter what gear you pick up, it matters what you socket into it. Over time, you can mix abilities, create builds, and do some fun combinations. I think this is one of the best parts of the game. Combat is mixed. Yes, regular fights are chaos, lots of enemies, lots of fun, and as you unlock more abilities, like the systems I mentioned before, combat just continues to get better. It's one of those systems that the longer you play, it just keeps improving over time. It is so much fun. The boss fights are a complete different story. Some are fine, some are frustrating, and there's a real lack of consistent balance in them, and that's just part of the issues here. There's a lot of teleporting bosses, high mobility encounters, random invincibility frames, terrible lock-on, a busted camera, gimmick fights, clunky controls, and gear check bosses. Like, did you grind upgrades before the fight? Oftentimes, the boss fights just do not feel fair. Visually, the boss fights are a treat to watch. Mechanically, they are a chore to engage with. Like I said earlier, Crimson Desert is not a polished action game. The combat is not tight, movement is not smooth, and you will feel the rough edges. Crimson Desert is a systems-heavy game. There's a lot going on. Just to name a small handful of systems introduced in the opening hours: stealth, crime, crafting, trading, base building, mounts, banking, fishing, platforming, pickpocketing, puzzles, horse taming, pets, gambling, bounty hunting, competitions. Some of it works, some of it doesn't. For me, it was the discovery that carried things. I kept finding stuff I didn't know existed, even late into my journey. And that feeling of discovery is strong. It's compelling, and it's something that will keep players playing. Like I said before, Crimson Desert is not really an RPG. It's not a story-first game. You're not making choices that matter, you're not changing the story, but the systems are there, they just don't always define the experience. And I think where a lot of people get wrong, what they get wrong about Crimson Desert is calling it a sandbox game. It's not a sandbox game. You can't just go do anything you want. You're not shaping the world in a meaningful way. It's not really an RPG. Yes, there are RPG systems, levels, gears, skills, but those systems are not the focus. You're not making deep choices. You're not building a character that changes the world. So if you come into this game expecting that, you're going to be disappointed. Crimson Desert sits somewhere else. It's more about interacting with systems and seeing what happens. I'll put it like this. You're not here to role play. You're here experimenting. And I think that's an important shift, because once you see the world that way, Crimson Desert starts to make a lot more sense. I want to talk about Crimson Desert's performance a little bit. For me, it crashed a noticeable number of times. Even after the patches, the crashes still happen, just less often, and the controls are a lot rough. There are a lot of movement options, but none of them feel great. Somehow, just half a dozen one way, 6 another. And sometimes endpoints don't register, and that gets frustrating fast. Like I talked about earlier, they improved a lot of basic core functionality, but it still feels clunky, which is part of my struggle here when I think about replayability. On paper, it looks like there's a lot here. Different builds, different systems, different ways to approach things, but in practice, it depends. You see, a second run won't feel fresh in the same way. You'll recognize a lot of what's coming, and for me, those early hours somehow felt even slower the second time, and the frictions stand out even more. You're not getting a completely different experience on a second run, as the story doesn't change, the world doesn't react differently. Maybe future updates will change this. Maybe there's a way to start a second run or a new game plus that skips the first 50 hours of tutorials, but right now, this is not really replayable in a traditional sense, as there is low narrative replayability and maybe moderate systems replayability. Maybe you want to mess with some mechanics you just ignored the first time. Ultimately, if you like experimenting, you might come back. If you don't, one playthrough is probably enough. I mentioned before how value for money is one of my favorite parts to put together for these reviews, and here it's super tricky because on paper, this looks like great value. I've put in hundreds of hours, there's lots of time there, there's lots to do, a lot to see, but you and I both know time alone isn't value. A big chunk of that time is not fun. It's learning systems, fighting controls and figuring things out on my own. So I think the real question here is, do you enjoy that process? If you do, Crimson Desert is worth it. You'll get your money's worth. And if you don't, this will feel like an insanity grind and you're going to bounce off it early. I'll put it like this. If you need a world to explore, this is a high time value, but an uneven experience. So it's going to depend on your tolerance. I think I've painted up to this point a pretty clear picture of what you're not going to get, what you are going to get here. And you need to know yourself as a player, what you like to do with your free time. Because this game is for you if you like figuring things out on your own. You don't mind some rough edges, you enjoy systems more than story, and you like exploring without clear directions. And most importantly, you're okay pushing through a slow start, because this game does not respect your time early on. If you get past all that, there's definitely something here for you. As ultimately, I think Crimson Desert will age really well. Not because it's perfect, but because it has strong systems. And systems tend to hold up over time. And I'd even just take a little look in my crystal ball here and guess that modding will be a big part of Crimson Desert's longevity. But today, here and now, at the time of review, as patches continue, I think the game will get smoother and a lot of the rough edges will get cleaned up. And that slow early game maybe gets a little tuned as well. I think new players will continue to have a better experience over time. This is the kind of game people tend to come back to, not for the story, but just to mess around with systems, to try new builds, to explore again, to engage with mods, and that usually gives a game a longer life. Still, I don't think this will age well for everyone. If you don't like it now, patches won't fully change that, as the core design is still the same. I'll put it like this, it's rough at launch but better over time. In years from now, I think this will probably be a much easier game to recommend. Which of course leads us to our big question, is it good? Yes, if you want a big open world and you're okay with some jank, there's something here for you. If you want a strong story with a clean, polished game, skip this one. I had a good time in Crimson Desert. Not a perfect time, but a good time. Crimson Desert is awarded a 3 out of 5, I recommend. Hey, let me know where you land on this. Did you stick with it or drop it earlier? Curious what side people's fall on? Thanks for watching.